Okay, everybody. So I would like to introduce Tarfah Alrashid from University of Jeddah. We first met in Sheffield last July, I think it was.
Yes,
and I think
July.
originally you were invited by Ignatius to give a talk to the group.
Yes.
Sorry you couldn't be here in person, but it's really great that we could connect up online. So we're recording this talk for later release, but I'd just like to introduce you to the group here. Thanks very much for agreeing to give a talk. And you're going to talk about automatic detection of scenes in narrative text. Tarfah, over to you.
Yes. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me here, and thank you for the introduction, Paul. Today I'm talking about the automatic detection of scenes in narrative text. This was a part of my PhD project that I did last year. This research focuses on exploring the idea that narrative scenes are divisions found in all narratives, and we want to see if we can automatically detect scenes in narrative text. And before we talk about the technical details, let's talk briefly about how this research can be useful. This research, automatic scene segmentation, can support multiple studies that integrate vision and language, like narrative studies, automatic text illustration or story picturing, aligning text in movies, automatic image description, or automatic narrative generation. So, in order for us to develop a model that can automatically segment text into scenes, first we need a set of annotated dataset. And when we began this project, and to the best of our knowledge, we couldn't find annotated dataset that have manually annotated scenes. So, in order for us to annotate scenes in narrative text, first of all, we need a set of guidelines and we need a definition for a scene. So we relied on scene markup language, the SceneML. SceneML defines a scene as a unit of a story that has three basic elements: time, location, and main character. If any of these elements change, then we have a change in a scene. SceneML have entities. So first it has scenes, which are the main element in SceneML. Scenes are abstract resource elements, so they are not explicitly annotated in the scenes. Then we have SDSs, the scene descriptive segments. These are the actual strings that are annotated in the scenes. So each scene can have multiple SDSs, but each SDS should belong to only one scene. Then we have characters, of course, times and location. These are the entities that form a scene. After multiple revisions of the guidelines, we decided to add another entity that are called scene transitioning segments. So we saw that some of the disagreements in the some of the disagreements between the annotators when they are annotating scene descriptive segments, they disagree on the bits that have multiple characters or even one character that is moving from one place to another. So we decided to create another entity that belong to SceneML and call it a scene transitioning segment. So if we have a scene and the only action in the scene that the character is moving from one place to another, then we can consider this as a scene transitioning segment, not as in this descriptive segment. SceneML have narrative progression links that link between the scenes. We have four types of narrative progression links. We have sequence relations, analepsis, prolapsis, or concurrence. The sequence relation link between two scenes when we have a change in either the location or the set of characters. So when the characters change, like a character enters the location or the scene, or a character exit the location, then we have a sequence relation between scenes. Then we have the analepsis. The analysis happens when we have a flashback in the scene. So, for example, two characters are talking, for example, sitting in a cafe and they're having a conversation. The conversation include a story happened, for example, last year. The conversation has like some action they did in a different time, in a different location. These actions could be considered as a scene. And because it happens in the past, so it could be considered as a flashback scene, and it can be linked to the current scene through an analysis relation. The prolepsis is similar to the analysis, except that we are taking flash forward in the time. And then we have a concurrence relation that link between two scenes that are happening at the same time. So at the same time, but we have different locations. So we have other types of relational links that connect between the scenes and its element. So we have character scene relation, we have time scene relation, and we have location scene relation. Then we updated the guidelines and added another relation called same scene as. And we added this because the annotation tool that we used didn't support the abstract scene annotation. So we couldn't annotate scenes in the text. We could annotate scene descriptive segments that are the actual text that comprise the scene, but we couldn't say, for example, that SDS1 and SDS2 belong to the same scene. So we added another relation called same scene as, so that if SDS1 and SDS2 belong to the same scene, then we link them together as a same scene as relation. And then we have the non-scene segments. The non-scene segment, these are the segments that doesn't belong to any scene, and they have three types: general philosophizing, opinion segments, background information segments, or narrative summary or catch-up. So this paragraph is a small paragraph from the Pride and Prejudice story. It says, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. So this paragraph represents the author's opinion. So this could be tagged or annotated as a non-scene segment. And here we have a simple and short story that represent or the annotation example of scene according to SceneML. So the story says that John and Tommy are walking down West Street heading to the supermarket. They remembered a year ago when they traveled together to Spain and had a lot of fun. As they approached to the supermarket, they found a little girl crying. So how can we annotate this simple story according to SceneML? So the first part, John and Tommy are walking down West Street heading to the supermarket. Here we have a set of characters, John and Tommy, tagged as characters. We have West Street, so here we have a location. So this can be annotated as the first SDS. So this is SDS1. Then the second part of the story that says, they remembered a year ago when they traveled together to Spain and had a lot of fun. So we have the same set of characters represented as they, but we have a different time, a year ago. A year ago is tagged as a time. So here we are taken back in the time. And we also have a different location, Spain. So this SDS2 is tagged as an SDS2, and it belonged to a different scene. It belonged to a different scene because we have a change in a time and a change in a location. Then the third bit of the story that says, as they approached to the supermarket, they found a little girl crying. So the same set of characters and the same time and the same location as the first SDS. So the third SDS is linked to the first SDS through a relation called same scene as. So we can say that SDS1, SDS3 belong to the same scene, to the scene 1, and SDS2 belong to a different scene because we have a change in time, a change in location. SDS2 can be linked to SDS1 through a flashback relation. So after forming our guidelines that are based on SceneML, we try to collect corpus sources to begin the annotation process. So then we have 3 different sources. One is from the future, which is a children's story, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz from Brown Corpus, and then we have a set of novels from Project Gutenberg, Pride and Prejudice, A Tale of Two Cities, Adventure of Sherlock Holmes, and The Great Gatsby. So we started the annotation process to first we tried to recruit annotators. There were 2 PhD students, native speakers, one in the English literature and the other in computational linguistics. And the reason why we chose native English speakers that we saw at the first round of annotations when we manually analyzed their annotations. For the non-native speakers, they sometimes either misunderstand the guidelines or misunderstand the story. For example, that we found some of the annotators annotated some idioms as the time or location of the story. So we decided to recruit native English speakers. Then we, after recruiting the annotators, we give them a training process. We give them a training session that has a presentation. So we presented the task, we presented the guidelines, we demonstrated an example, an annotation example. So we annotated a chapter in front of the annotators. Then we gave them an annotation exercise. Then they submitted the annotation, their annotation of 2 chapters of Bunnies from the Future. We manually examined their annotations for the disagreement parts, and we discussed that with them. And then we improved the guidelines. As we can see, we added, for example, some entities or some new relations to the SceneML. We use the BERT annotation tool. It is a swipe and click web-based annotation tool. We only annotated SDSs and scene transitioning segments. So we skipped annotation the entities because it was a large project and we couldn't do that. Multiple SDSs that belong to the same scene, we asked the annotators to link them through the same scene as relation. And we published the dataset in the BERT standoff annotation format. So the final corpus consists of 14 chapters from 6 different narrative sources. This is an example of the annotated dataset using BERT annotation tool. And this is the corpus statistics. So we can see that, I just want to see the text. We can see that the variation between annotator 1 and annotator 2 regarding the SDS's annotations and scenes annotations are quite small. So this suggests that they understood the task of annotating SDSs and scenes in narrative text, and that was easier for them. And the big variation happened when they annotated scene transitioning segments and non-scene segments. The big variation in the annotations happened when they annotated the STs and the non-scene segments. And here we have the agreement scores according to Cohen's kappa. And we tested the kappa score according to different measures. So, for example, here when we say n equals 0, then we mean we have an exact match. For example, if annotator A1 said that the SDS1 start at the first sentence, and annotator 2 annotated SDS1 to be started at the second sentence. Then if we followed an exact match, then we don't have a match, we have a disagreement if n equals 0. Then if n equals 1, we allow a one sentence error. So for example, of annotator 1, the same situation, annotated sentence 1 as the first sentence of SDS1 and annotator 2 annotated sentence 1 as the second sentence of any of the text, then we have a match, because if n equal 1, then we are allowing a one sentence error. And because scenes are quite big in the text, we will definitely have lower marks if we only stick to the exact match Cohen's kappa score. So here we have, after we finished collecting the data set, then we started to build the model. So we tried to build 3 models. So we tried to deal with the problem with the 3 different ways. The first one, we used a feature-based CRF. So we considered the sequence of sentences as a sequence, and we generated a sequence of tags for these sentences. The tags are either 1 or 0. So tag 1 means that we have a sentence boundary in this sentence, a scene boundary, and 0 we mean that we don't have a scene boundary in this sentence. So feature-based CRF, we used some features like, is this sentence the beginning of a chapter or an end of a chapter? Is this sentence a beginning of a paragraph or end of a paragraph? We used also transitioning phrases. We also used the preceding sentences and following sentences. And then we also used BERT, pre-trained language model, BERT case, and BERT uncased. So here we treated the problem as a normal sentence classification problem. So the model predict the tag for each sentence as either a boundary sentence or a non-boundary sentence. And the third model, the sentence pair classification. So here we treated the problem as a sentence pair classification, in which the model is giving 2 sentences, and the model is predicting one label for the relation between these 2 sentences. And we use the sentence pair classification to capture as many contexts as we can. So for the sentence pair classification, we give the model the sentence to be classified, and the other pair, we concatenated the first 2 preceding sentences with the current sentences that need to be classified and the 2 following sentences. And we did that to capture as many contexts as we can. And since the data is unbalanced, we use the balanced accuracy and F1 score. And we can't say that the best performing model was the BERT case. It was only a slight difference between the other models, but BERT scored the highest according to the F1 score that has 0.24. And the baseline, the majority class classifier, has a 0.50 balance accuracy. This is an overview of the results of the classification task with 6 models that we have. And as you can see, that BERT case scored the highest according to the F1 score. Yeah. And we only found 1 similar study to ours, and they also scored a result that is comparable to ours, 0.24 F1 measure. Okay, and that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the talk. And if you have any questions.
Now we can give you a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know whether that comes through okay on Teams. Tarfah, thanks very much for the talk. And you're getting some virtual applause as well. Excellent. Okay, so questions in the room or online, please raise your hand. I had one really specific question I can start with. If anybody else wants to jump in. Tarfah, can you go back to your slide with the inter-annotator agreement? I think it was, yeah. Tale of Two Cities, chapter 1 is really low scoring. What happened there?
I think
Seems to be zeros.
this chapter has a lot of non-scene segments, and as I explained in the first in the slide before this, that the majority of the disagreement between the annotators was on the scene transitioning segments and the non-scene segments. And I think one of the annotators didn't quite get the idea of the non-scene segments. So one of the annotators tried to annotate most of this chapter, whereas the annotator two annotated like 2 or 3 sentences of this chapter because this chapter actually has a lot of non-scene segments.
Right. Okay. And so something similar in the chapter 3 as well, because that's quite low.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Questions?
Yeah. One question. Did
Yeah.
you choose the texts for the dataset according to their structure, or just because they were like they belong to open datasets or famous datasets like the Brown University corpus?
Yeah, we try to stick to the ones that are open source and that doesn't have a copyright. Yeah. The only one that we needed to obtain a copyright was the Bunnies from the Future, and I tried to write the author, and he gave me the copyright.
Okay, and it's interesting because the Bunnies from the Future is you say that like a child book or a teenage book, and the rest of them are like kind of old books in terms of the years they were written. Did you consider that the public that the books are oriented or the year that they were written affect to the structure of how the scenes are written, respect how nowadays the scenes may be written, and that also affected the results of the study?
Yes, I think so, because the Bunnies from the Future is a children's story, and it's a modern English story. So the English is quite easy. So the inter-annotator agreement on these chapters from the Bunnies from the Future were higher than the others. So I think the language affected that, yeah, and the structure also.
Because I would assume that the use of this tool could be useful for assessing how well some person can understand the text based on an automatic evaluation. Like you give someone a text and ask them to, for instance, identify the scenes or so, because they have to identify the times, the characters, and the places, as you said. You use a tool for automatically assessing, and you can compare. And if you can use your machine as some kind of golden standard, you can easily assess hundreds if not thousands of people for their reading skills, and that can have some useful impact on education, for instance.
Yeah.
So maybe, as you said, if you don't have any changes for future in order to continue with this research, maybe you stick to those student level books. Maybe that can be a way for continuing with this study, which is interesting.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your suggestion.
Okay, thanks. There's a question online from Ignatius. Do you want to unmute Ignatius and ask?
Well, yeah, I guess you could have asked for me. Yeah. Tarfah, thanks very much for this talk. Like I said, I think I've seen a part of it before at the Text to Story workshop in Dublin. Yeah. Thanks for coming over. I remember I invited you, but you didn't come.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, Ignatius.
So now you're here. All right, good. My question is, the one immediate thought is, given what is done with LLMs today, with regards to tasks like this, how do you foresee a situation where you integrate it in your pipeline for annotation or evaluation? If so, how?
I actually got that comment in my Viva. So yes, we added this in future work. So we should, of course, use LLMs to enhance the automatic scene detection.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So just to follow up on that, how can you speculate how good or bad LLMs might be at this task? What's your hypothesis?
I really don't know.
Okay. for English, we might guess reasonable, but difficult to know unless you
I think it's
give it a
it's
go
gonna
and
be.
try.
I think it should be better than the ones I used, but I don't know how it will handle like text that is written in old English books like Sherlock Holmes or Tale of Two Cities. I don't know how well it will handle these text.
Yeah, although they've probably been trained on many of those things
Yeah.
from Project Gutenberg anyway. So probably have them in the models.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any other questions in the room or online? Okay, everybody's really happy. Thanks very much, Tarfah. Thanks very much for dialing in and presenting this today.
Thank you all for having me, and thank you for listening to this talk. And we hope we can meet in person next time.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks very much, Tarfah.
Thank you.